MadXStitchers. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the different ways that you can use to hold your project while you're working on it. I've had some people ask me about the frames that I use on my videos and how I have them bolted or magneted down. I've had a lot of really weird theories about what I'm actually using, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But before I get to that, I want to talk about a few other ways that are pretty common or not as common to hold your project while you're working on it. So the first one that you have is the wooden hoop, and this is the most common method you'll find out there because it's available everywhere. You can go to anywhere that sells craft supplies and find wooden hoops. They are very easy to use, they're very cheap, and they've got pretty much no learning curve. You just put your fabric in between the two hoops and tighten the bolt up top, and there you go. There's your embroidery in the hoop. The problem that some people will have with this is that they're not very good at keeping your tension. So you'll find that about every half hour or so sometimes, depending on how you like to stitch or how intense your project is, you might find that you're having to readjust your tension in here and retighten your fabric all the time, and that can get a little bit annoying. But that's kind of the only drawback. The other one really is that they are a little bit fragile, so if you adjust your tension too much, it will possibly snap. But the nice thing about the wooden hoops is that they come in pretty much every size imaginable. We have this little tiny 3-inch hoop right here, and we also have this thing, which is so big I can't even get it entirely on the camera. I want to say it's about 24 inches across, probably even bigger, I can't quite tell. This is not actually used for embroidery, usually. This is a quilting hoop, but some people will work in these if they are very, very ambitious. You can also frame your pieces in there. And they'll also come in these oblong shapes, like this, which are really nice for framing in. I don't know about working in them. I've never worked in one of these, but I suppose you can if you want. But that's kind of the nice thing about the hoops, the wooden hoops anyway, is that they come in a huge amount of sizes in quite a few different shapes. And this is a 5x9 according to the stamp in there. On a similar vein to the wooden hoops are the plastic ones. And they work exactly the same as the wooden hoops, except for they are plastic, and they have two things that the wooden hoops don't, and I don't know how well it's going to show up on the camera. Not very well, it looks like, but there is a raised lip along one side right here, and there's texturing on the outside of the inner ring and on the inside of the outer ring, and that keeps your fabric from wanting to slip away too much, and it keeps your inner hoop from wanting to pop out when you are stretching your fabric. So that's a little bit nicer in that regard. The only problem with these is that they don't come in quite the nice variety of sizes. The smallest I've ever found is this little 4-inch guy right here. And the biggest I have ever been able to find is a 10-inch hoop, which is a decent size, but they come much bigger in the wooden ones, so you might have to move it around a little bit. And if you're very lucky, you can also find them in the ovals. Now, the only real drawback to the plastic hoops is that because they do have nicer tension and they do hold your fabric more tightly, is that they will crease your fabric quite badly, and they can crush your stitches and make them not stand up very well, which can be kind of a bad thing. You're going to have to really be careful when you're using this, and you definitely want to take your project out of the hoop when you're not using it. Even just loosening the tension and leaving it in there can really damage your work, so you don't want to do that at all. You want to completely take it out of the plastic hoop. Another thing that some people will use is the scroll frame, and this is a very cheap one. I think you can even see how it's not actually even. It's got a twist to it, and nothing in the world will fix that. It's very cheap. I think I paid $15 for this at Michael's, and it was $15 too much. Don't get the ones that look like this. I will put a picture right here of a better looking scroll frame that is a lot easier to use. That's the kind that you want if you want a scroll frame. Don't get the ones at Michael's because they are a tremendous waste of money. They have problems with the dowels, they're not cut right, they don't hold on to your fabric, and when they do, the tension's just completely screwed up. But scroll frames are nice because you can have a very long design. This is a pretty small one because it's actually been somewhat cobbled re-together for various reasons, but you can have a long design that you can then scroll through by loosening the tension on these bolts, and in theory these will want to scroll. As you can see, this one doesn't because it's crap. Don't get these ones. Get a nicer one if you want a scroll frame. But it means that you're not going to have any kind of creases or crushing of your stitches if it's a nice one that actually behaves. So that's a better option for a bigger project. The only problem is that you are still limited to the width of your frame unless you want to go out and do some jerry-rigging and get some different dowels, which is a big pain in the ass. So you're going to really want to choose your frame very wisely if you decide to go with a scroll frame. Another method people have that they use is the Qsnap, or just a snap frame, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You have the outer part that just snaps onto the inner part just like that, and it's completely adjustable. You can get them in all sorts of different sizes to fit your project. I'm not a big fan of this, mainly for two reasons. It doesn't fit in my floor stand, and it's too big to actually hold in my hand, and it causes hand cramps when I work with it. That's the only problem I have with this, but it keeps tension relatively well because of the texture on the inside of this. I don't know how well you can see that. Not very. But this has got a really nice ribbed texture that holds on to the fabric really nicely. And these are pretty common. You see a lot of people using them, and they even sell these things on Etsy that will go around the frame so you don't have to touch your work at all. And if you put some felt in between this piece right here and the bar, you can even keep your stitches from being crushed. So it is actually a pretty popular way of holding your work while you're working on it. But like I said, the only problem that I have with it is that it's just not very comfortable to hold on to. And the last one, which is the one that I use, are the stretcher bars. And they come in these little sets of 2, and they just pop right apart very easily. This is the 6-inch one. This is the 7-inch one. And they come together just to make these really neat little frames in pretty much any size you need, from 6 to 18 inches. And I'm pretty sure you can probably even find them in other sizes, but that's the size that I get in the set that I buy. And they create these very nice little frames that you sometimes have to work to get together, but once they're together, they're not really going to move around on you too much. And as you can see, mine has been quite well used. And that's because what you put in there are these little flathead tacks, and you just tack your piece onto the frame and hold it tight, and it's not going to go anywhere. You don't have to worry about losing your tension or getting any kind of wrinkles in your work. And if you put it in a floor stand, you're not going to even get your hands on it, really. The only thing that you really have to keep in mind is that because you are tacking holes into your fabric, you need to make sure that you have quite an extra bit of space around your project, because those holes are not going to go away. So you can't really move your project around on this very much. That's the one problem that you have with it. So you have to make sure that your frame is going to be big enough to hold your entire project, which sometimes that's not the case. And then you have to get a little bit creative and maybe find an old painting to cannibalize and use that, because any kind of wooden frame will work. They just happen to sell these very conveniently to be any size that you need them to be. And I found that they do tend to have a shelf life of about a year. You can see that this is one that I've used quite extensively, and it's getting to the point now where I can't really use this set anymore, because anywhere I put the tacks in, there's already a hole and it just kind of pops out, and you don't want that. But hopefully this has answered a few questions. If you've been wondering a little bit about what I'm using, or if you've seen someone else use a different method that you've been curious about. If you have any questions, please do put them down in the comments below, and I will get to them as soon as I notice them. And I may do a little bit more of an extensive video on the stretcher bars if that's what people want. In this case, I just kind of wanted to go over a little bit of everything and show you guys what that all was. But I'm going to leave it here for now, and I will see you guys all next time. Bye!